Hello, so good morning.
Good morning.
And I hope everyone can hear me. I hope everyone had a good weekend. And actually, I just want to say that, uh, first of all, welcome to this week's episode of Knowledge and Experience. And I've been here a couple of times to listen in, and I've really enjoyed my time here. So I was actually quite honored when my good friend Edward approached me and asked if I could join one of your weekly knowledge and experience seminars and to present or share some of my career highlights with you. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here this time just to introduce myself to the group and talk a little bit about my professional experiences and hopefully sometime in the future when time permits, I can take you on a more technical journey about some of the things that I do on a regular basis in my area of expertise. I will try to keep it brief for the sake of time and also try not to bore you guys to death talking about myself. Um, so before we get into all of that, I would like to start with a culture of care moment. This is a concept that I picked up in my work here at Jacobs and that I have come to personally adopt when doing any kind of presentation. So for most of us, we know this to be something sort of a safety talk, or a safety brief meeting. And I think it's been really informative for me, uh, having been part of such culture of care moments, and that's why I want to share something with you before we move on to the business of the day. So let's talk about consecutive sleep loss today. And experimental studies have shown that just even one night of sleep loss impairs your next day's performance. It impairs your mood, your energy, your vibe. I'm sure so many people of you can relate to that. It's it's very common, and yet little is known about the effects of consecutive sleep loss on the daily well-being of individuals. Uh, so what is this consecutive sleep loss that I'm talking about? Basically, it's just having less than a recommended minimum 6 hours of sleep per night over, consecutively over a period of time. And as you can tell from my screen, basically the chart on the right shows that the relationship between the days with a certain amount of sleep and the corresponding number of errors during a standardized test that was performed, and it revealed that you know the lesser the amount of time that we sleep, the more prone we are to making errors. And as summarized on the left-hand side, you can tell the kind of effects that consecutive sleep losses can have on you or your performance with time. Now, besides the fact that sleep loss increases your likelihood in making errors, it also has impacts on our health. Inadequate sleep in midlife may actually or can actually lead to dementia. And uh, for those of you who don't know what dementia is, it is simply the loss of cognitive functioning. So, like the ability to think and remember stuff or reason properly, all these are impaired um, when dementia kicks in. There are many reasons why we may not be able to get good sleep at night, and some few examples that I could think of include shift work and insomnia, taking heavy responsibilities for yourself or other people, especially if you have kids, anxiety, presenting deadlines at work, etc. The The harmful effects of inadequate sleep can kick in quite late in life. So if not earlier than 50, at least from 50 years, you can feel the early effect of dementia and consequently, in some serious cases, even death. The good news is that you can reduce the risk of dementia. All you need to do is have a lot of sleep and rest, which is quite easy to say, but not so many people of us are able to get that 6 hours of sleep in. But it is highly recommended that we do, especially if you have a very busy schedule of work and personal life. Now, there are a lot of ways that can help us combat poor sleep. And as you can see on this image that I found on a source online, it shows 11 easy tips to follow. And I think looking at it prominent amongst some that you can easily do exercising during the day, I think it's pretty common that people nowadays are being active and avoid caffeine late in the day and avoid going to sleep late or try to go to sleep at the same time every night. You know, try to take a bath before you go to sleep, or instead of, if you are the type who likes to read, instead of reading on your phone or your computer, just try to read printed books before you go to sleep. So in summary of our culture at the moment, all I want to say is just, I know we are all busy, but we need to try to find time out of our busy schedule to rest and have a good sleep at night, you know, so we can avoid some of the health defects that come with not having proper rest over a long period of time. Okay, so I'll start talking about myself now and briefly start with my early life in education. I was born and raised in Koforidua, in the eastern region of Ghana. So there I had my primary and junior high school education. Upon completion of my junior high school, I enrolled in St. Peter's Senior High School in Kwetiakau, where I majored in science. And let's say after successfully completing my SSSC exam, I got admitted into Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology to pursue a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. And after working for a few years after studying in Ghana, I decided that I wanted to do my master's, where I pursued an MSc degree in environmental quality management at the Wrocław University of Science and Technology here in Poland. Like most Ghanaians, you know, after school, you know, your career normally kicks off with the national service. And I was quite privileged to get the opportunity to do my national service with VRA. That is where I learned a lot. You know, I think, in my opinion, I had a very good start to my career, because during my time in the VRA, I worked in the transmission department, which has now been fully independently incorporated into some kind of an energy transmission company called Gridco. And there I got to meet a lot of players in the energy business, form very productive relationships with some of them. And as you might find out later, one of the companies that I worked for after my service, actually, I met the country director during my time in VRA. Because in VRA, I was mostly responsible for organizing bid openings and supervising tender submissions by contractors and suppliers and consultants. And so during those kind of procedures, I met so many people and made a lot of very good and positive connections, which would help me later on in my career. So the company that I was talking about, that was Fulcrum Energy. So after my national service, I got contacted by this guy that I used to be in communication with. Because he was the head of the Fulcrum Energies in Ghana, and at that time they were bidding for one of VRA's projects. And when they won the project, it was coincidentally at the time that I had finished my service with VRA and wasn't really sure what my next move was. So when he approached me that he wanted me to work on the project as a project engineer for his team, which was then represented by a Ghanaian organization called KBA Engineers, I obliged, and I was happy to take on the job. So I worked on two major energy projects during my time in this company, and they were both in Takoradi. The first one was the West African Power Pool Transmission Backbone Project, which was then famously known as the WAP project. And this project was sponsored by the World Bank, and it was at that time the vision of the ECOWAS state to develop some kind of a cooperative power pooling mechanism for integrating national power systems within the West African sub-region. So this project that I worked on was the phase 2 of that vision, which was meant to connect power grid systems between Ghana, Togo, the Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso. Now, this kind of agreement, in my opinion, at that time was with an expectation that such a mechanism would, over the medium to long term, assure citizens of these countries stable and reliable electricity supply and at affordable cost. I'm not quite sure how that vision is doing now, but at that time it was a really good and viable project to embark on. So for this project, we built a 330 kilowatt power substation near the Abuazi thermal plants. This involved a lot of civil works and foundations and the erection of gantries and transmission towers, as you can see in the image at the bottom. Now the WAP project also meant that, we had to increase our production capacity to meet demands of not only Ghanaian consumers, but also to be able to meet the demands of other players in the pool whenever it was deemed necessary. So for example, if for some reason Ghana was low on production, then we can be able to rely on Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso to supplement our demands until we are back up in production. So that was actually the main aim of this project. So for this reason, there was an upgrade of the Abuazi thermal plant, where an additional 132 megawatt capacity was added to the existing production capacity of the thermal plants in that VRA owned in Ghana in general. I think at that time it was about 440 watts. And this consisted of 4 gas turbines, like a heat recovery system, generator setup, and 1 large heat turbine. And as you can see from the image from the right, this project involved a lot of groundworks. This is probably where I learned or had most experience in earthworks, working in construction. So upon the completion of my my stint with Fulcrum Energies, that was after the contract ended, I got a job as a project manager for a construction company, which was mainly in real estate. And I think it was in Osu, in Accra. It was called BG Builders. And while I worked for BG Builders, I got the opportunity to manage a few interesting projects, like the construction of a telecommunication cable landing station for MTN, somewhere close to the beach in Labadi. This was kind of a similar project to the WAP project, in the sense that MTN was at that time creating a West Africa cable system, which aimed to facilitate and reduce the cost of connecting the west coast of Africa into their high global telecommunications network. Yeah, this was the first kind of high capacity submarine cable system deployed by any telecom company in the country at that time. In BG Builders, I also worked on a few real estate projects. It was mainly real estate and commercial, residential and commercial complexes, sorry. And it was quite a good experience, you know, because some of the projects that we did were quite huge, like Crown of the Ridge, which is Ridge. It was a residential complex, luxury apartments. The Grand Oyaman, which is near Opebia House. I'm not sure if any of you has noticed this new huge building close to Opebia House. So yeah, that was one of the projects that I managed that I was really proud of. And another one that I did was this AMS office building at the airport residential area, where we built both an office complex and apartment complexes on the same compound for African Mining Services, which is an Australian mining company. You know, back in KNUST, one of my favorite courses was water engineering. So even in my final year project within that specialization, when I got the opportunity to study like environmental quality management as a master's program, I did not think twice about it. I went for it because at that time, when I worked for a while in construction and project management, I still didn't feel the level of satisfaction that I wanted to have in my career as a civil engineer. And that was mostly because I hadn't done any comprehensive design work so far. So then I decided to take the next step, and that was to pursue a master's degree. So upon completion of my master's degree, I got a job with Arup as a water and sanitation engineer. While I was in Arup, I worked on a lot of challenging projects, and notable amongst them was the drainage system design for the new AS Roma football stadium. This was a huge project for me at the time, and it was a project to design an ultra-modern and energy-efficient Colosseum-style stadium with a capacity of about 60,000 seats. And it was a project that was born out of collaborative efforts. And it was undertaken by multidisciplinary teams from our offices in Milan, in Krakow, where I work, in Berlin, in London, and in Madrid. So the Krakow office in Poland, where I worked, was responsible for the drainage systems design. And I say that this is by far the most challenging project that I have ever worked on in my career. And that was because, first of all, it was my first design job. And there was still a lot that I needed to learn even after studies. And also due to the fact that every design decision we made had to be consulted with other team members from other disciplines like electrical and lighting designers, or the fire engineering design team, or the water supply team. And this was just so that we avoid any kind of collision or avoid any underground clashes during construction. In Europe, I also worked on a similar design project for a company called 3M. 3M were planning to build a new manufacturing center in Poland, but it was on a much smaller scale compared to the stadium job. But it was, yeah, it was also a very good experience for me where I learned a lot of design work. Actually, I was feeling very, very satisfying and fulfilling in my career during my time in Europe, because I was really exposed to things that, you know, I always craved for, but I never had the opportunity to be a part of. And my interest in hydraulic modeling was sparked during my time in Europe, where we built hydraulic models for water utility companies, which were used in interventions like leakage detection and pressure management, flood mitigations, etc. Hopefully in my next presentation, like I said, if time permits, I would like to talk more about hydraulic modeling, because it is really a passion of mine, and it is something that, you know, I have come to love. And coming from Ghana, we never had the opportunity to apply any kind of hydraulic modeling mechanisms, because of the kind of existing drainage infrastructure we have in the country. So it was a really good experience for me, and it's something that I would like to share with you sometime in the future, if of course you don't mind and you'd have me coming back again. So after 4 years with Arup, I was contacted via LinkedIn by a recruiter from Jacobs, who asked if I was, I wanted to hear about a job opportunity that they had. And of course I said yes. So HR gave me a call, followed by a technical interview a couple of days later. And then they made me an offer that, I couldn't refuse. So yeah, I joined Jacobs in March of 2020, where I'm currently working as a senior hydraulic modeler. Here in Jacobs, my focus has primarily been on hydraulic modeling, which is basically a collection of mathematical equations that give a simple representation of reality. So in simple terms, what we do is we try to emulate the hydraulic characteristics and dynamics of an existing water infrastructure as closely as possible in order to help make decisions on, for example, design or operation, or maintenance of any water infrastructure. The most common, or some of the most common applications of drainage network hydraulic models are development impact assessments, which we do quite on a regular basis for water utility companies, especially in the UK. In the UK, we have very, very big markets for the water industry, and most of our projects come from there. We have very good project engagements with water utility companies there. And since I've been in Jacobs, I've been working with mostly UK clients, and it's been a really eye-opening experience for me. And we also do flood prediction models and mitigation, as well as solutions optioneering. So that's basically using the model to predict where flooding is likely to occur during a certain rainfall intensity, and trying to also design solutions that can mitigate that flooding before it even occurs. And this is really something really special that I really enjoy doing. Okay, so in this session, I would like to talk about some of the key takeaways that I noticed in my career, and some of the things that I had to adopt to in order to help me succeed in any project or any working environment that I find myself in. And the first that I like to talk about is diversity and inclusion. I know this is a really broad topic and it's gaining more popularity, but in my personal experience, it has really helped me improve the way I even think, within a project setting or within a working environment setting, the way to get along with people from all all sorts of culture or background, or diversity, I believe, is an important aspect of improving not uh, not only the organizational performance, but also for you as an individual who is willing to open up to different people from different educational background, culture, ethnicity, race, religion, etc., what have you. And in a country like Ghana, we are one people, but we are very diverse, especially when it comes to our culture and our religion. Studies have shown that diverse organizations are inherently happier, and more productive, and is more competitive in their industries. So a diverse and inclusive organization, for example, contains people who are not afraid to speak up, and this helps create a sense of belongingness at work and adds value to everybody's um, input, or I'd say. When teams consist of diverse individuals, decision-making processes are enriched, as diversity, of course, diverse perspectives are always enabled, and it enables more comprehensive analysis of problems and consideration of different viewpoints. It also helps increase creativity and innovation. And I remember even during my time in Takrady, when I worked mostly in construction, sometimes when I had a brainstorming session with artisans on site, like masons or carpenters, we were able to come up with better solutions than when I actually did brainstorm sessions with my fellow engineers. And this goes a long way to show that every member of the team is important. And that's what we need to remember, that open up, regardless of the position of who you're working with. You always have to be open up to listen and include them in discussions, and basically share knowledge and experience in one way or another. Uh, the second thing I would like to talk about is effective communication. Whilst diversity has many advantages, it can also be a challenge to align different communication styles in a work environment where we have different people from different backgrounds and beliefs. Different ways of communicating work best with different people. And if you're able to recognize your communication styles and those of others, then you can better understand who you're talking to and how effectively to get your point across. The image on the right of my slide shows 4 different communication styles. Now, I am no communication expert, so I can't take a deep into them as much as I would like to, but it is very valuable source of information to help understand the communication style of people that you work with on a daily basis and adapt accordingly to fit whatever circumstance or situation that you find yourself in. One thing that also that is good to know is situational awareness. Now, it's always good to know, first of all, where you are, in which environment that you're working, you know, because different people behave differently across the world. So what is normal in one location may not be normal in the other. And it is a very important thing to understand. And that is one of the first things that I got to understand once I moved outside of Ghana and worked in Europe. It's really completely different dynamic. And being aware of my situation, of where I am and what I am doing has really helped me progress a lot. So on the topic of what you are doing, are you conscious of what you are doing? Is it, do you, are you doing things that help you progress in your career? Is it something that your colleagues would like or approve of? Is it something your manager would approve of? You know, it's little things at workplace that sometimes we don't pay attention to, but it really matters because, you know, you never know who is watching. And if no one is watching, you just have to make this conscious effort that when you're at work, try to give you 100% and maximize whatever you want to bring out of you during the day. It is very important. And also, how are you perceived? What my colleagues think my strengths are? You know, what are you good or what are you well known for? What is it something that you like to change or improve? How do you feel? Do you feel valued? If not, is there something that you can change? What are the others doing? Like your colleagues, how are they succeeding? Is there a more experienced colleague that you can look up to? You know, there are a lot of mentorship programs that we are always encouraged to join. And it is something that we take lightly and we take for granted. But the good news is, you know, people, there are a lot of nice people, approachable people in this world who are willing to help you in any regards that they can. So taking a mentor, not even from work, but on a platform like LinkedIn. I have a lot of mentors in LinkedIn, people that I haven't even worked with before, but I am connected to. And they're always willing to share their experience with me whenever, like, if on a project I have some problems and I want to have the views of other industry experts who might not even work where I am. They work in different companies in different countries. I just reach out to them. You lay out your problem to them, and it might amaze you how many people are always willing to help. So it is really a good practice to always look around what people are doing. Is this something that you can learn from, you know? And what also you can do, basically you just have to be confident and be proactive, have faith in your skills and just give your best. One other important lesson that I have learned along the way is setting priorities and requesting for feedback. And this this is something that you can do at the end of the year. I mean, at the beginning of the year, sorry. You can set priorities and what is it that you want to clearly achieve in the coming year in your work? Is it something that is a skill that you want to learn or improve on? You know, if you're able to identify the things that you're good at and really enjoy and try to improve on it, expand your thinking and consider opportunities outside of your comfort zone as well, because these are challenges that help you grow. And most importantly, you have to request for feedback on your performance. So if whether it is with, usually what I do is when I work with external consultants or even clients, at the end of the project, I request for feedback. So, and I ask them to be honest with me and, you know, be constructive as much as they can, criticize my performance on the project, but also I ask them to give the opinions of the upside of the relationship working with them. And this I have come to realize is a very good practice in terms of lessons learned. And getting feedback is really a good way of knowing where you are, how you're doing, and what you want to do going forward. So like I promised, I was just going to keep this one more introductory and short. And thank you for having me here. Now, I'm ready to take any questions if there are any.
Hello, everyone. Mr. Akyea, thank you very much for sharing your life story. It's been an impressive journey so far. Before we invite questions from the rest of the team, I think I would like to ask one thing from you. I wanted to find out, looking back at your progression, your career journey so far, what would you go back to change if you had the chance to?
That's a good question. I think one thing that we take advantage, I mean, we misunderstand or we don't really take advantage of is continuous improvement. If I had a chance to go back, I would make sure that, you know, in every environment that I found myself, I was going to stay a step ahead. And what I mean is, there's so many resources available to us now. Maybe back then it wasn't so, you know, the internet wasn't so popular. So we were always in the moments that we found ourselves. We used whatever tools were available to us, and it wasn't really popular looking outside, you know, the scope to see how you can improve. And going back in time, I think that is what something that I would be, it would be the top of my list, continuous improvement. Like, I don't know, studying programming, for example, I have come to find out it is very, it is it's a very, very important skill to have programming, because a lot of times projects that we do here require, for example, automation, and it is engineers who have that extra, or who had that extra edge to study how to code. They always called on during such projects, and sometimes we feel, you know, that this is something that you would really like to do, but there's a skill that you lack, and nobody's going to teach you. It's something that you have to be proactive and find your own time to improve on. So yeah, if I had a chance to go back, I would continuously improve on myself on a daily basis.
The floor is open for questions to Mr. Akyea. If you have any, you can raise your hand and you'll be told to ask him a question or seek any feedback or clarification. Okay, so I see Emmanuel Ate's hand up. Emmanuel, you can go ahead with your question.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the wonderful presentation. Please, given that you have your expertise in drainage systems design, I wanted to ask, are there softwares? The world has evolved in technology in a lot of things, but so far, the projects I have seen so far, if it comes to the design of drainage structures like the U-drains and then the covers and all that, I see they still follow in a way the traditional way of the hydrological design. Then after that, the sizing with the hydraulic uh, calculations. I was looking at it. Maybe we are lacking in knowledge or we don't have access to applications yet. If there are some softwares that are used for design quicker and then faster, where
Yeah,
you can easily size your covers and then your U-drains.
yeah, they are a big pool of softwares that you can choose from. Uh, for example, Innovice. I don't know if anyone's heard of Innovice. They have a range of software which you can use in drainage design, water supply design, hydraulic modeling, and same as Bentley. Bentley also produces software for drainage design. I guess it depends on the requirement of your project. But in my experience working for companies like Arup and Jacobs, uh, we always have our own internally developed software that we use. And it's mostly based on experiences from the team. So we try to develop our own software, for example, for designing drainage systems for private individual works like this ASMR project. But for mostly for public entities, because most of them have also deals with software manufacturing, software development companies, they they decide what kind of software should be used for the project. And like I said, there's a wide range of it from causeway technologies to hydro drainage to, InfoWorks. I mean, yeah, there's a large pool of software available, and I'm not sure, maybe the kind of projects that you work on uh, are also specifically in the sense that people have done it before, people have done the design before, so it's easy to use the old design that they used, which is cheaper because software is very expensive. Not every client can afford to pay for it. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And the floor is still open for questions to Mr. Stanley. If you have any questions for him, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I see Jacqueline's hand is also up. Jacqueline, you may proceed with your question.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you for sharing your life with us this morning. So my question is, I saw that from the start of your career, you were working in the energy sector, then there was a switch where you dive into water supply and sanitation. So I want to find out, how did you manage the risk associated with you moving from one sector to the other? Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's a good question. I think, like I mentioned some at the point in my presentation, after working in construction for a while, I think I got tired and I didn't feel fulfilled, because I've always wanted to be an engineer who can design and not just, build. So I started looking for opportunities, and I wasn't, and the reason why I wanted to travel to Europe somewhere and get an experience, because I knew it would be easier for me to start afresh, you know, from a country where there's, or from an organization where there's so much knowledge and there's so much experience that I could easily just start from the beginning easily and then climb back up. You know, it depends on the individual. But when I got opportunity to do my master's in environmental quality management, there I knew that it was a good start for me to start all over. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't like I had been working for 10 years and I had to start afresh. You know, I had tasted the market, I had enjoyed what I could enjoy, but there was more that I wanted. And that was motivation enough to make the switch. And I must say I haven't regretted it, because now I can say I have construction experience and I have design experience as well. And it is really going well for me. This is the way I plan my career. So yeah, it's been good. And just don't be afraid to switch. So long as you're happy doing what you're doing, you'll be fine.
Okay, thank you very much. We will be rounding up the session shortly. We're still pressed for time. So if you have any final questions, I think we can take one more question the um from participants. So if you have a question, raise your hand. You'll be attended to. All right. Whilst I'm waiting on this, I would like to ask a question for the rest of the participants who are listening in, and for anyone else who would want to go into the career that you're currently in, Mr. Stanley. What advice do you have? What should they look out for? How do they prepare themselves to be able to get themselves involved in the kind of career or the path that you're currently on?
First of all, the interest has to be there. You know, it has to be something that you're passionate about and something that you want to do. The rest is easy. Like it's really not rocket science like people say it, you know, because especially if you work for an organization with long years of experience in design, there is always this blueprint that once you enter the organization, you just need to follow it. If you want to ask questions, ask, you know, just follow the blueprint, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Just make mistakes, learn from the mistakes. And by the time you realize you're just doing things that come so easily to you, you know, that you wouldn't have been able to even think you could do at the beginning of your career. So yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to pursue what you desire or what makes you happy. Just do it. There's so many people along the line who are going to help you. It's just these days the internet is so vast that there's just a wide pool of knowledge and experience that you can always take something from. So yeah, just go for it.
Very much. I'll be taking one last question. I have a question here from Beryl. I think his is more of a technical question, but yeah, I'm sure you'll be happy to take it. Beryl wants to know what flood mitigation measures you have worked on, and additionally, what are your thoughts on the most effective ways to address the flood situation in Accra?
In Accra. That's a good question. Yeah, so flood mitigation projects I have worked on are mostly in the UK. You know, UK has a very long history of flooding when it rains. I mean, not as serious as sometimes we experience in tropical Africa, but for that reason, they have put together long-term intervention programs, and it is consultants like Jacobs, Arup, Atkins, who are charged with delivering all these mitigation solutions. So I have done a lot of mitigation work for US water companies in various cities and towns. And I would have said that, the most ideal part of flood mitigation is tackling climate change. And we do that basically with hydraulic models. You have to build some kind of climate resilient model, which helps you make predictions in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. In the case of Accra, I'm not really, the only thing that I can say is, of course, since we don't have the existing infrastructure for, like storm or sewer drainage systems, the only thing I can say is that we need to think about how we can build small, small DMAs within the communities where we can manage our own drainages and maybe invest in treatment facilities, for example, in each community. So, but that is really capital intensive, and I'm not sure how the planning is going to pay out, but that is one of the solutions that I see.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're out of time now, so we'll be wrapping up the session. I'd like to say a very big thank you, Mr. Stanley, for making the time this morning to join us for this session. It's really been educative and informative. I'm sure those of us who are interested in going through the career path that you currently have found this very educational and would be able to apply this to themselves. I'd like to thank everyone else who also joined us this morning for making the time to participate and to contribute as well. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much again for making the time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a good week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.